Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished guests, respected scholars and colleagues, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's my honor to welcome you to this session of Unified Social Finance, Bridging Zakat, Waqf and Islamic Microfinance. In a world where communities face both persistent poverty and rising socio-economic challenges, Islamic social finance offers us a unique instruments like Zakat for immediate relief, Waqf for the sustainable endowments, and microfinance for empowerment through entrepreneurship. But their true potential lies in how we bring them together under a unified framework to build resilience, reduce aid dependency, and creating lasting impact. To help us explore this important topic, we are joined by a distinguished panel representing academic insight, private sector experience, and investment expertise. Let me now introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Professor Dr. Bahoram Abdul Hamid, Professor at INZAC University in Malaysia, and Vice President of the Asia Pacific Applied Economic Association. Professor Bahoram is a prolific scholar and practitioner with over 150 high-impact publications in books, journals, and policy papers, along with extensive applied Islamic social finance projects with banks, governments, and agencies both in Malaysia and abroad, as we have just seen. Just now, he delivered a thought-provoking keynote on unified social finance on this topic, setting the stage for this very discussion. His insights into how research can inform policy and practice make him an invaluable voice on our panel. Please join me in welcoming Professor Dr. Bahoram Abdul Hamid. Second is Ustaz Azmin Rashid, a distinguished figure in Islamic finance and Sharia advisory. He holds an LLM from Maldives National University and an LLB in Sharia and Law from Islamic University of Medina. Ustaz Azmin currently serves as a Sharia auditor at Ernst & Young, Managing Director of the Maldives Center for Islamic Finance, and Islamic Finance Consultant to Ministry of Finance. He is also Managing Partner at Azmin Omar & Co. and serves as the Investment Advisory and Sharia Committees of Maldives Zakat House, SME Development Finance Corporation, and Maldives Hajj Corporation. With credentials as a certified Sharia advisor and auditor from IOFI in Bahrain and as a licensed Sharia advisor under the CMDA Maldives, he has contributed to structuring Islamic sukuk and treasury instruments as well as sustainable fund management. He is also a visiting lecturer at the Islamic University of Maldives. Please join me in welcoming Ustaz Azmin Rashid to the panel. Our third panelist is Mr. Ibrahim Riaz, General Manager of Amana Takaful Maldives. Mr. Riaz joined Amana Takaful in 2017, bringing with him over 25 years of experience across both public and private sectors. A seasoned business development consultant, he has led initiatives in business planning, organizational diagnostics, and strategic design. He holds an MBA from the Australian Institute of Business and has further sharpened his expertise in data-driven decision-making through executive studies in data science and predictive analytics at the National University of Singapore. His leadership reflects a strong commitment to innovation and advanced business intelligence in the financial sector. So thank you, our esteemed panelists, for joining us today. Just now we have heard about the promise of a unified social finance project in Malaysia from our Professor Dr. Bahoram. To start our discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Azmin and Mr. Ibrahim Riaz to share your perspective on how Zakat, Waqf, and Islamic microfinance, for example, can complement each other rather than working as a separate financial product, and why bringing them together under a unified framework matters for sustainable development. First, I would like to give the chance to Ustaz Azmin.
Yeah, thank you, Hatim. What can I say? I think Professor Dr. Bahroom has shed insightful insights into the particular topic. So I'll just give out the Maldivian context for you to connect with the insightful insights shared by Dr. Bahroom. So the thing is, we have Zakat. We're calling it a unified financial strategy in the sense that it's um, inclusive of Zakat, Waqf, and microfinance components. So we need Zakat, Waqf, and microfinance components to work harmoniously together for it to have a lasting impact. So thing is, for us to consider that there is a person who to include someone in the financial inclusion strategy as well as reduce his aid dependency, he needs to have access to finance. I think we need to understand that his access to finance comes from the microfinance schemes. Microfinance schemes generally are provided by the banks or financial institutions. Financial institutions or banks can provide these microfinance schemes based on the fact that they are able to source these funds because it's a financial instrument per se. What could be the potential source of funds that could lead to providing these microfinance schemes? Zakat could be one, but zakat, the source of funds for zakat are only eligible zakat payers. There is no other mechanism for zakat house to earn another source of funds unless we can plug in Waqf itself. Waqf is the entrepreneurial activity in which zakat house can multiply these funds that is provided by the eligible zakat payers. You see, zakat payers have their own entrepreneurial activities in which the zakat house cannot directly influence or control. So it's up to the zakat payers to pay. Of course, it's obligatory for them to pay. They pay based on the profits they receive. But there is no mechanism in which zakat house can influence them for better profiteering directly. But they have another mechanism through Waqf to ensure they have this same multiplier effect and get into the entrepreneurial activity. So including this Waqf, including with zakat, can potentially empower the microfinance institutions to provide microfinance, which in turn increases financial inclusivity and reduces aid dependency. So these three mechanisms need to work in harmony together for it to have a lasting impact. Thank you.
And Mr. Ibrahim Riaz, maybe as an expert in Takaful, and based on the talk given by Dr. Bahram, what are your thoughts? Like, what might be the role of Takaful, for example, in creating an integrated Islamic social financing scheme?
I hope I'm audible. Yeah, thank you. Uh, I actually, while the professor was delivering his keynote, I just, I felt like, yes, when the problems were discussed, he was telling about the constraints in our local context. We work in silos. We don't have any cohesion among the institutions that are supposed to be working together. I think that is what Asmin also have identified. So I think that basically addresses the issue here currently, and I don't see any difficulty in understanding the diagnosis. So I think that is the first step that we have to take if we are to progress through these lateral financial institutions like Zakat, Waqf, and Takaful as well, and the banking sector. We have very strong institutions, but it's silos. So we need to find a way to work together. I think that mechanism or that backbone is required. There should be a leadership, there should be a vision, and without which we are not going to thrive. Before I just conclude, I would shed some light on what Professor said while closing it. I think it was in response to a question from the audience um, about the plan. We should have a plan, long term, short term, medium term. We can have the best of the plans, but without the proper culture, the whole plan will devour. It's how it works. So, if we are to work around with a good plan, we need to create that culture of receptiveness and acknowledging that good which brings to the society with that initiative. Thank you.
And to Professor Bahram, I would like to ask you regarding the um, kind of legal, regulatory, and institutional frameworks that are necessary to support the integration effectively. Um, so, what are the um, frameworks that we need, like legally or the regulatory the rules? If you look at the regulatory frameworks or the institutional frameworks that are necessary to make this a successful project.
Thank you, Sheikh. First of all, I feel relief when Brother Riaz have said that he accept and he agrees, and I believe a lot of people in this room also agrees that currently we have a problem. We are working in silo, right? If we want to move forward, first we have to admit the shortcoming, right? So the same thing happens when in Malaysia we all agree that we were working in silos, but that's a good thing so that we can move forward. So coming back Sheikh's question about legal, for me, I don't think we need a legal regulatory framework, but rather cooperation, right? This cooperation can comes under the ministry, under the Minister of Religious Affairs, and it can be a loose coalition with all those who have common interests, right? I'm pretty sure Takaful industry has their common objective. Zakat has their common objective. Waqf have their common objective, and I'm pleasantly surprised. You also have some experts in the area of IT, gamification, legal, and so on, right? So all you need to do is come up with a coalition, right? A consortium type of coalition, which does not have to be legally set up, because too much regulatory also can stagnate the growth. Sit down, what you want to achieve, where you want to be, and then you identify who wants to hit which segment and what is the timeline, what kind of report, and I think then you will be up and running. So rather than regulatory, we need understanding, we need cooperation, we need a coalition. Remember, social finance is not all about zakat. Takaful has a same responsibility providing social protection net, which can actually help the Takaful industry to grow on its own, right? So we need to think about micro Takaful, things like that can work hand in glove with others. So my take on that is I would prefer to go through the coalition, cooperation side rather than having a regulatory. And I think you already have Minister of Religious Affairs, right?
Yes.
So which can be the head, which can bring it to the higher authority.
Ustaz Azmin, in your opinion, with your knowledge in this sector, who do you think should take the lead in this integration? Should it be the state or the religious councils, the Zakat House, or the financial regulators? Who should take the lead?
Yeah. So the thing is, we have it's been discussed. We have multiple expertise working in silos. Yes, absolutely. We have Ministry of Islamic Affairs working separately. Ministry of Finance similarly working separately. We have MIRA, Tax Collection Authority, also collecting zakat at the moment. We have Capital Market Development Authority working in silos. Similarly, there is no integration. So the question is, who should be a leader in this? I mean, like most of the experts in Islamic finance industry are right now in a lot of, it's stuck in the financial institutions. Some of them are in the banks, Zakaf institutions. There are none of the experts of notable worth working in the private sector. But private sector is where the bulk of the capital or wealth of the Maldives is. If you go to the harbor section, or what we call the a number vihara, the number shops in the marketplace, they're just simple entrepreneurs, but they have millions in their bank accounts, and they are operating under a sole proprietorship license because it was forced upon by a regulation an act in 2014. Because they started off 20, 30 years ago, just simple businessmen. They've grown up. They've expanded to the point that they have millions, but they're still not willing to come into the banks. I met a couple of people just a year back, and I've helped two of them to go into the banking credit facilities. So the thing is, in what aspect should or where should the leadership come from? That's a very difficult question, because each and every aspect, they have their own expertise. The CMDA has their own expertise. Ministry of Finance is working on separately on their own expertise. Under Ministry of Finance, we have Maldives Center for Islamic Finance. Technically, there should be a lead in the development of the Islamic financial sector. Yeah. So, somewhere someone has to start. Yeah. So, I am of the opinion, in my opinion, you asked, right? I am of the opinion, a strong leader should take initiative, bring together the experts into one room, organically, entrust them with certain work, have a long-term goal, and then we just start work. But the question is who? Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. Because everyone is by themselves experts in the area, in their own respective fields. So somebody just needs to take leadership.
So somebody with the character that you have just mentioned, a strong leadership, who should take initiative. Okay.
That's a safe answer, you know.
Very diplomatic. Okay, so I would like to again ask a similar question, but not a troublesome question, inshallah, this time. In practical terms, Dr. Bahram mentioned about some of the projects, like, so how can the beneficiaries, the people who receive the finance, transition from being aid recipients, so who receive Zakat, for example, to become self-reliant entrepreneurs or homeowners who may be Zakat contributors later in the future? So how is this transition going to happen? Like, how long is it going to take, for example? What's the objective or the vision of the institutes that are providing this finance?
Okay, for example, if you look at the urban farming, in the first year, I had 3 of them graduating from being a Zakat recipient, Asnaf. They become entrepreneurs, and the amount of money they were earning, they have graduated from Asnaf. So people might think, oh, only 3 people, but then again, look, 3 out of 25, and that is within the first year. So same thing, I'm telling you, it's about planning, it's about nurturing, it's about providing the access. You know, like what we did was we gave them training, Yellow Bank. Yeah, if I don't say Maybank, you won't know it's Maybank, right? So Yellow Bank provided access in terms of using their platform. They have Sama Local. They did not charge anything for the delivery and everything. They provided training, they provided access to financing and so on. And they visited the site like every once a month, twice a month, they visited. So this is the follow-up. So you should have target saying that after a certain period, you want maybe 5% to 10% to graduate. And if it does not happen, it's not a failure. identify what were the problems, what needs to be done, and so on. Again, like I said, I would love, at the end of INZAC today, INZAC 2025 comes up with a resolution. You see, INZAC 2025, after all the panel discussion, after all the keynote speak, we are coming up with a resolution we want to change. We want to work together for the betterment. So the resolution is to identify a consortium or a coalition that will work together and come up with a 5-year plan. So now you have pressure on you. Then the next would be, who is the pro tem leader? I'm not sure what would the process be, but that's how we work it. Rather than we come here for the whole day, we eat 5 times, then we laugh, then we go, people come back in ZAC 2026, people say, what happened in 2025? I don't know, I met some good people, some good friends, I don't know. What was discussed? I could not remember, So there has to be a follow-up, right? Good thing is from INZAC 2024, I can see there is a regulation which has been officially launched. So 2025, what's next? Be brave, look and things out of the box.
Mr. Abraham Riaz, Professor Bahram talked about some of the real case studies from Malaysia. There are other countries such as Jordan and Pakistan who have also experimented with the unified social finance models. So, from these models, which of these examples offers lessons that could be adapted for the Maldivian context? And what challenges, in your opinion, should we be cautious about?
I actually did some background research on the subject area because I'm not very conversant in it. So what I found was very interesting. Bank Islam in Malaysia, they conducted a housing scheme which was called Sakina housing scheme. Yeah, and I had a chat with Professor Bahram about 2-3 days back, virtual, and he was also telling me about a housing scheme there. So right now, what I believe is that we have a poverty line. So below poverty line is, I think they don't have anything. That's why we are supporting. But even above poverty line, if you look at, a huge population is within lower middle class. And we are struggling with a housing problem here in Maldives. And everybody, I think, top of the agenda is about housing. And just recently, 4,000 housing units have been awarded. I'm sure many of them would not have the funds or the means to get the furniture and all these equipments to their apartments. I think this is a real opportunity for Zakat and banks, Takaful, everybody coming together, supporting us, because otherwise they will have to go for commercial loans, and that is going to be, again, for the payback, it's going to be something very heavy. So that is the reason we see that people has to rent out, rooms from the apartment, and again they are back to, that square one where they started. I think these kind of projects, this is a good opportunity, that Zakat House, but there should be someone who has to initiate it. Even banks can, I'm not saying not. I think even Takaful, since I'm coming from a Takaful company, I'm sure we will support for these kind of initiatives. And we are sure that we don't want to make it like a commercially viable one, rather it can be something for the good of the community, because giving back is a characteristic of Takaful entities. So we call it cooperative insurance. I think if you look at the model, it's like that. We have different funds, shareholders has a different fund, risk pooling is a different fund, so that belongs to the participants, and it's actually even today if Amanat Takaful decides to close down the operation, it will go to the participants, so rather the regulator will decide upon that. So I believe that we have the requirement, we have the need, and this is the right time we can even, jump into something like that. So just if we reflect on overseas, there may be plenty of examples, but here we have this actually currently, the pain is here, the pressure points are there. So we need to, I think, feed those points. Thank you.
Mr. Azman, I think you want to add something, but I want to pose a specific question again.
Yeah.
My question is, could a Maldivian pilot start a small pilot program maybe? We can select one island or one sector and scale gradually. So could we start such a project here based on your experience of the Maldivian, the market, I can say? So what sort of projects is possible? Mr. Riaz mentioned about the housing, so similar to that. So I want a specific example of a small project that can be scaled gradually, like what Dr. Bahram is doing in Malaysia.
Yes, it was impressive that was done in Malaysia. So the thing is, Maldivians have been very entrepreneurial since the very beginning of time. So we'll talk about like 20, 30 years back. If you say, we would say traditional clothing, in Divahi we'd say Bowalo, Kasabulibas. That was hand woven by Maldivian tailors. And similarly, hand woven, coir rope, similarly, that was also something done by Maldivians. At the same time, Tundukuna, grass mat weaving, that was also something done by Maldivians. We used to export these, but we do not see these abundantly in the souvenir shops, which 2 million tourists visit per year, and it's a $4.5 billion industry. So thing is, from 30 years ago to what we are where we are now, what changed? Right now, we have lost our spirit of entrepreneurship. So think about one most important aspect is these three examples I mentioned were undertaken by women within the islands. Okay, they were very entrepreneurial. Okay, the men were, of course, going fishing. So we were entrepreneurial people by nature, but past 20 years, I think because of especially the succeeding government's policies, changed the mindset of the second generation. This is the same generation or same mindset with our parents have, but our generation, the mindset have completely changed to the fact that we wanted comfort of a salary. So everyone right now demands jobs. Everyone right now wants jobs. They do not want to work in an entrepreneurial sector, which is quite uncertain. So this is an issue right now we face within the next generation of Maldives. But this, coming to the specific question, what can we do? There are plenty of things we can do. Number one, seaweed. We have the island for it. We have the resources for it. Number two, fish farming, groupers, extensively used in the tourism industry as well. Lobsters, shrimps maybe, but none of these are right now being farmed on a massive scale in Maldives. So think about it. Not only that, I've been to Malaysian aquarium. Do we have an aquarium in Maldives? We, the Maldivians, export fish to the Malaysian or Singapore aquarium, but we don't have an aquarium here in Maldives. We have underwater restaurant, but we don't have an aquarium. Think of how many people would come visit this aquarium, see what the richness of the ocean which we have, but we don't. There are so many things we can do that could be scalable, that is profitable, but we have lost our entrepreneurial spirit. That's the issue here. So I think I've given you more than 3.
Yes, good. Thank you. When we look at the actual practice of this, I want to ask a question regarding the Sharia compliancy of this type of financing. Dr. Bahram, how can we ensure that the integration, for example, Waqf or Zakat or Takaful or other Islamic finance or microfinance products remain firmly Sharia compliant while also being operational efficient and profitable for the actors?
Thank you. For me, I'm not a Sharia scholar, but I'm a mathematician. If A is Sharia compliant, B is Sharia compliant, C is Sharia compliant, then a product of A, B, C definitely would be Sharia compliant, right? Unless something massively goes wrong somewhere, okay? And for me, I always say this, we are also concerned about Sharia compliant. We should be Sharia based, and will be impact. How impactful is that? If I listen to brother just now, he was saying fish farming, lobster, and so on. These are projects that are easily compartmentalized, and you can even do pilot project, right? I would love for some of it come up with a budget, how many people, what's the return, and you go for a low hanging fruit. Try to go with BML or MIB. If you cannot, then go for HSBC Amana, the low hanging fruit, the guys that you can easily grab. Uh, this is you're helping them. So don't worry about Sharia compliant, because A, B, C, Takaful, all these are already Sharia compliant, so we don't have to worry about any of that. And we have to start shifting our mind to what can create impact. Maybe you have lost the entrepreneurship, but nothing says that you cannot get back the entrepreneurship. You need to get back, and you need to start believing in yourself. Like I said, when I started doing this, people did not believe. People were saying, "What were you doing? Urban farming? How can it help?" But then I persisted. I'm pretty sure you have also learned the case of the Bangladesh government advisor, Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner, right? I had the privilege of meeting him in person twice. He said why he was successful. It's up to you whether you want to say he's successful or not. But the world say he's successful. He got a Nobel, right? He said because he know nothing about banking. That's why he was successful. Same like me. I was not the Sharia compliant guy. I was thinking all the way on economics, how to be good and how to create good. Henry Ford used to say, if an entity does not think of a profit, the entity will go bankrupt. But if the entity thinks solely about the profit, you should not allow it to operate. He said you can be good while doing good. This is what we have to start preaching to everybody, to all the banks. Make profit, but responsibly. Do good things. You have to start drumming these things. And every time you do anything, you think about what's the impact that you're going to create. Inshallah, whatever comes from God would be impactful. If it's not impactful, it doesn't come from the God. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. Ibrahim Riaz, regarding the same question about the Sharia compliancy, but there are maybe other factors also that we should consider, like the transparency and of these projects. So I want to ask you a question regarding the governance structure. How do we make sure the governance structures are transparent and accountable, and they are protected against misuse, maybe through digitalization that Professor has mentioned during his key speech? So what might be the role of digitization, for example, or digitalization in preventing this type of misuse?
Yeah, I thank you very much again. This is an area that I think that is very important in the current context, because everybody wants to scrutinize what others are doing. So the best solution is you publish everything. It should be transparent and accessible to everyone. Then I don't think people will have any doubt about what you are doing. So it's a very simple thing that we can do, and make it as lively as possible, as real time as possible, so that even individuals or people who wants to write about it, if they want to do some kind of analysis at any given time, I think they should be able to access the information and do it, because that creates that actually it is free marketing. You are giving people opportunity to market, talk about your products or what you are doing, and when you don't talk and others talk about it, it's called social proof in marketing. So it can vouch, where it stands and how it will impact others.
Professor Bahram, do you agree with that? Like, can, for example, a competitor, a competitive bank, for example, BML, and you mentioned about MIB, can they just copy the others' products? And maybe you are also working on some projects, so you are very generous about sharing us with the details of how the project was successful. So would you mind others maybe copying the same project?
I have no problem. I have no problem. I will feel privileged. I will feel happy because, after all, it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the God. And I agree with brother. He said, "You be transparent. You be accountable." That's it. Nobody will have anything to do, and let it be a competition among the banks, among the organization. Who wants to be more transparent? Who wants to be more impactful? I'm more than happy. Like I said, if brother said, he wants to do lobster farming, fish farming, I'll be happy to jump in and say I can try to help as much as possible.
And again, I would like to ask Ustaz Azmin a specific question again. So if you were about to start building a unified social finance model again in the Maldives, what would be the most realistic first step? In which sector? You mentioned about you gave us some examples, but I want, which sector should be prioritized first? Should it be education, healthcare, housing, or the examples that you gave, entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I'd like to go back to just to answer that question. I'd like to go back to 50 years back. Okay, year 1970. The Maldives has just gained its independence. 5 years afterwards, we did not have any banks. We did not have any banks operating in Maldives. Just a hypothetical example. But there were two houses in Maldives who were perfecting their recipe of creating short eats. But they did not have the opportunity to expand it, and people, otherwise all sorts of Malay, did not have the opportunity to taste their unique recipe. We only heard about it around mid 2000s. Right? So it took like 30 years for them for the whole Maldives or Malay population, the capital city, to know of their secret recipe, or a secret recipe behind an entrepreneurship. They were creating short eats. That's something integral part of Maldivian culture. They were Husnoge and Sartanuge. I think everybody would know that. So they had this secret recipe. They had an amazing recipe, but it was not shared with us because they did not have the access to capital for it to expand. So I'm just thinking, it's a hypothetical scenario. Husnoge and Sartanuge is real. Everybody knows them now. They have this. Everybody, I think it's a must-have for every Maldivian household during Ramadan for breaking fast. Okay. So the thing is, but we didn't know of them until mid 2000s. But they had this recipe a long time back, but maybe they took their time to perfect it. So my point is, if they had access to capital, I mean, like, all banks are not bad. If we had an Islamic bank back then, they had access to capital. Maybe right now, they would be exporting it to other countries, maybe to Malaysia, probably, because it's that good, actually. It's that good, generally speaking, okay? So answering your specific question, access to capital is very important, and which is why I started my talk with microfinance strategy. Microfinance is where these entrepreneurs, people with ideas, they need this access to capital for them to start their own businesses and expand. And the beauty of Sharia compliance is that there is no interest rate pegged to it. It's profit sharing basis. And if there's a loss, they would definitely undertake it. They would be sharing risks on it. We can devise it in any model we want. As Professor Dr. Bahram has mentioned, definitely all of us are Muslims. All of us are Muslims. We are a 100% Muslim nation. Whatever we devise would definitely be Sharia compliant. We don't have to deliberately make it Sharia compliant, because as Muslims we are obliged to do it. So access to capital with a risk sharing basis, definitely this particular business will not go bankrupt, because when the profits go low, the financier takes risks. Unlike in conventional banking, even if the profit goes low, it's a loan. There's an interest rate back to it. You have to pay back at the definitive interest rate, and therefore he sells all the assets of the business just to pay back the loan. So that's it. Think about it. There are lots of sectors. We have areas where we can improve. If I were to choose one sector, I would do sea cucumber.
Sea cucumber.
Definitely worth it.
Why is it?
Because Maldivian islands are unique in the sense that we have sea cucumbers. It's high in demand throughout the world as well. And because of the unique geographical location, we can easily allocate certain islands or certain reefs or certain lagoons towards its farming.
That explains. Jazakallah khair. So before we move on to the last part of the panel discussion, I would like to ask Professor Dr. Bahram regarding the starting question for the last part. So beyond zakat houses, beyond the Maldivian zakat houses, which other stakeholders, such as the Waqf boards or takaful providers, microfinance institutions, regulatory bodies, or even other community organizations, which other stakeholders should play a role in building a unified social finance or Islamic social finance ecosystem, and how can they be empowered to collaborate effectively?
I think it needs the comprehensive contribution of the banks, takaful operators, resident association, mosque committee, and even the ministry. So we look at it as a holistic approach. So it is not something that is a job of the government. It's not something is a job of the bank or the takaful. So this is where I said, let us come together as a community, as a society. Everybody can contribute. Everybody can make a difference. Don't let anybody out of this plan here. The mosque committee, the resident association, they are on the ground, so they will be easier to monitor, to advise, to report, and so on. The banks can be providing the financing. The takaful can be providing the social protection net. The policy makers, the ministry, can provide the assistance and so on. So for me, it's a 360. Everybody has their role to play. Doesn't matter, it's a commercial entity like banks, takaful operators and others, or NGOs like resident association, mosque committee or others, or even policy makers. Even imams have their roles to play in encouraging people to do the right thing, to support each other and so on.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair. And Ustaz Azmin and Ibrahim Shid, Riaz, I want to also give you a chance for a closing remark before we open the floor for the question and answers. I want a comment regarding the blended financing that Professor Bahram mentioned about a mix of, for example, zakat and microfinance, or Waqf and microfinance, or Qalb Hasan. What might be the possibilities of having this type of products here in the Maldives?
I think Professor's presentation and the contribution during the last 2 hours, I just came a bit late, sorry for that. It is very eye-opening. I think there are many experiences from his, projects that we can adopt locally, because there is nothing that involves a huge funds. With minimal funds we can do, even pilot projects we can do. Only thing we need that commitment. If there is a will, there is a way, as he said, the saying goes on. It's very real in this context currently. So we need one of the agencies to initiate. I think the rest will come on board, because I also need to do my annual report next year, and we had to write about sustainability. So I need numbers there. Banks need numbers there. Other financial institutions need numbers there. So to tell this story, we need this kind of socially responsible projects that we have undertaken or partly we have been participating. I think it's open. We are very open to that. The whole banking and takaful sector, insurance, everybody will come on board. There is no harm there. So, what I believe is this particular conference is a very good conference, and I think everybody here would understand, because we never spoke anything about uh, rocket science or anything that is very difficult to absorb. It's very simple. So I think it's our will that will see ourselves tomorrow. Thank you.
Osman.
Yes, I'll also share my closing remarks with a live example. My comment would be on capital market. Okay, CMDA was established in 2006, so we are in our 19th year. Okay, but it's only the last 5 years we've seen accelerated growth of capital market instruments into the market. What could be the reason why? Just to give an idea, the reason is because they relaxed their rules to allow for more investment advisors, more principal advisors, more Sharia advisors to operate in the market. So based on this, if you want to develop any sector, we need more players into the market. So maybe that's for the capital market scenario. For Waqfs, we need trustees. We don't have a Waqf law in the right now, but we need trustees. We need institutions or firms to take on the role of trustees, and they need to have in their board certified accountants, lawyers, finance people, so that the public can bank on them. And it doesn't matter, maybe the investment advisor of CMDA can take on the role of trustees as well. So this is the area we need to move forward to. We need to open more players. We need to invite more players into the market. We also need to, we have many legal firms, but we do not have Sharia advisory or Sharia specialized firms. So likewise, we just need to open the market for more players to come in. That would be the way for the market to develop. That would be my key take on it.
Thank you very much to our panelists for sharing their such a valuable insights. Now we will open the floor for questions from the audience. So if you have a question, I kindly request that you keep your questions brief and direct, and if possible, indicate which panelists you would like to address. So this will help us make the most of the limited time that we have.
Assalamu alaikum. In the interest of time, I will try to keep as short as possible. In the interest of the topic that we are discussing here, maybe of some relevance, this just August, on the first week, CMDA announced a joint financing facility initiated by the UNDP with the aim of de-risking lending for the blue economy through micro, small, medium enterprises. So this scheme works like we are opening for banking institutions and capital market, through capital market, for micro, medium enterprises to come up with blue economy projects where we are encouraging financing institutions to create financing products for them at a discounted rate, where some of banks or the maybe the investment advisor or principal advisors fees will be financed through these projects. So there are opportunities even now being created. I think the industry needs to come up with these options to cater. I think this also will help in that regard. I just wanted to highlight that issue.
Thank you, Musli. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think whatever brother have shared just now is all have to do with micro enterprises, blue economy. I think now it's time for you to start planning and what needs to be done.
Thank you for. Now let's take the second question from the audience.
Thank you, Firas. You want to pledge from HSBC? You want to pledge some fund from the HSBC?
We'll need to see the feasibility first. Thank you very much for everyone. My question is for Ustaz Azmin. So just wondering, like, do you think there's a role for the government to play in bringing all these silos together? Just thinking out loud, like if there's any way to come up with a center, right, for Islamic finance. Is there such a thing in Maldives?
Okay, so yeah, of course the government has a role to play. Maldives Center for Islamic Finance was introduced, enacted via a presidential decree in 2016 for that specific purpose. The thing is, it has been reduced to a mere shell, in fact, to function as a special purpose vehicle for government treasury issuances. Right now, it's not independent on its own. It's just a shell of its former self, working as a special purpose vehicle. Of course, Maldives Center for Islamic Finance manages around 3 to 4 billion rupiah of treasury instruments. Without a fee, by the way, without a fee. All of the employees are generally within the Ministry of Finance, remunerated by Ministry of Finance, and none by the Maldives Center for Islamic Finance. There was a key initiative some time back to revive Maldives Center for Islamic Finance in its former form, but given the fact that there was an undergoing SOE transformation, cutting down costs, so we decided it's not the right time for something that's already functioning as an SPV to come out of its shell, because it needs capital to work on its own. So we do have other plans to make Maldives Center for Islamic Finance, MSIF, as self-sustainable. We have a $40 million fund with Islamic Development Bank that is specifically to cater for the SMEs, small medium enterprises. So the fund manager of this has been set as Maldives Center for Islamic Finance, MSIF. So we're talking about even 1% of that fund as fund management fees would definitely put us in the right position. That would make us independent from the national budget and give us appropriate funds to initiate the required development of the Islamic financial sector. It's currently underway. So we are at the final stage of launching with SDFC, SME Development Finance Corporation. So yeah, politics and policy makers definitely have a role to play. At the same time, they only have an idea. It's only the people who are at the ground, the technical people, just to tell them this is the mechanism forward. Because this particular fund, USD 40 million, was also initially thought of to be routed through MFMC. This is Fund Management Corporation. But of course, the transfer from MFMC to MSIF would be the reason why MSIF would be self-sufficient in the future if this project becomes a success. And maybe by then MSIF could be a regional player, could be a country player towards development of Islamic finance. So that's the idea anyway.
Thank you, Ustaz Azmin. Can we take our last question for this session from the audience? If you don't have a question from the audience, I think we can conclude the session for now because of the restricted time that we have before Maghrib. So Alhamdulillah, we have had a very rich and insightful discussion today. Thank you, dear panelists. Our panelists have highlighted how Zakat, Waqf, and Islamic microfinance, when integrated, can move beyond short-term relief to create long-term socio-economic resilience. So for the Maldivian context, this conversation is especially timely. As we look to strengthen education, healthcare, housing, and entrepreneurship for our communities, a unified social finance strategy can reduce dependency, empower people, and build sustainability from within. On behalf of the organizers, I sincerely thank our panelists for sharing their expertise and all of you for your engagement and presence. May these ideas inspire practical steps forward in building a more just, resilient, and inclusive society. Thank you, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.